welcome to Metropolitan Faces, a podcast about subway photography, in which I talk to other subway photographers. And I'm sitting here with Kaylee Ginger, is her handle, but it's Kaylee Handelman. Hi, Kaylee.
Hi.
Thanks for coming by. So you have been on Instagram since when?
Oh, God. That's a predictable question I should have an answer to. Sometime maybe 2011, pretty early. I was on there with just one friend.
And what were you doing at first on Instagram?
Basically sharing photos with that one friend who lived in Los Angeles, and we were posting pictures back and forth.
Got it. And so you started, at a certain point, you started taking pictures of people, of things on the subway. And so do you remember the first time you took a picture of something or someone on the subway?
I don't. I have a few early memories, and mostly of the ones that sort of failed. But probably, I'd always had a camera with me, so there's maybe some blurriness between surreptitiously taking digital camera pictures and taking Instagram pictures.
Got it. And so when you have a camera, what kind of camera are you using?
It's always my iPhone.
It's always your phone, your
Yeah.
iPhone. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, well, tell me about the early failures. That's interesting. Because we always have these pictures in our heads that we remember, and the picture in our head is never the picture on the paper, on the screen.
Yeah, no, it's there's really only one that stands out immediately, but it was this entire family, a mom and a dad and a child, and they were all wearing head-to-toe leopard print. I don't know if there was an occasion or that was their thing. And I went to take a picture, and the flash, which I never have on, I think it must have been a new phone or something, the flash went off, and they noticed. It's the only time I've been noticed. And I just sort of haplessly muttered a bunch of things to myself about, camera, and moved on. So I didn't get the picture, and it was really embarrassing.
And did they seem to mind that you were trying to take their picture?
No, I'm not sure they even registered it. I think they just registered a flash going off on the subway and looked up.
And what train was that on?
It probably was the 2-3. That was the one I was riding the most then. I was commuting from Brooklyn up to Morningside Heights, so I had a lot of time on the train.
So you took a couple of early pictures, but when did this go from I am taking a picture of something I see on the subway to a project? Because it's not your entire Instagram feed, right, but it is a significant part of your Instagram feed.
Probably at least 5 years ago. I would imagine after graduate school, just because I didn't have brain space for anything else during grad school. And that was when I think I came up with a hashtag, did the sort of research to make sure it was my hashtag, and then went back and retroactively tagged a bunch of pictures. I remember one, it was And
tell us your hashtag, by the way.
Oh, it's NY commuter photo. NY commuter photo. All one word. I think it was when I went through and I realized I had enough, and I had one I really liked, and it was Valentine's Day, because it was a photo of one of those sort of grotesquely large stuffed animals in a garbage bag abandoned on the subway. And I thought, there's definitely a story there. And then I went back through the feed and realized I had enough to sort of group them, and then it was a fun thing to keep tracking.
And so when you say you're always doing this surreptitiously.
Yeah.
And so you get in the subway car, what do you do?
Depends on the day. I usually have headphones in. I sort of have a routine, especially in the mornings, listen to a podcast, and then if I get a seat, I sit down and read. I'll read the paper. But I always look around, see if there's any good prints or shoes or sort of situations that grab my attention. And then I'll try to position myself near them, if so. And otherwise, I just sort of go into that fugue state of commuting.
So sometimes you will position yourself, especially because you see a photo opportunity coming up.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I like being by the windows also, because then you can grab people on the platform, see people getting on the train that might be good. I also like looking for regulars. There are a few people, who are always on the train around the same time. It's fun to spot the same people again and rephotograph them if I can.
Have you gotten, how many times have you photographed? What's the most times you photographed one person?
There's one guy I've photographed 3 times. He's really tall and wears these beautiful suits. I know very little about suiting, but they're really nice. And he has these beautiful leather bags. And he's really jittery. He like constantly sort of taps his leg. I mean, he stands out for all of these reasons. So it's fun if I can spot him.
And has he ever spotted you, or?
No, he's got his earbuds in and his Wall Street Journal.
And what train are you on now?
The Q and the B.
Q and B.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you just using the regular camera app, or how are you working?
Yeah, there was a while, I think, where I used Hipstamatic, and now I really regret it because those photos are irreversibly bad. But yeah, I just use
because
the
of the filtering and
the filtering and the resolution, and just they are really dated in this way. The irony, right, of them like trying to look retro, and now they just look like they're from 2010. It's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At what point did you become aware of other people doing this?
I think talking to you. I think talking to you, and then Instagram expanding, and then people would send me other people's photographs on the train, or I would see them. But yeah, just sort of organically.
And so tell me more about like people send you other people's pictures. So what will they do, and what are they trying to communicate, and what are you hearing?
Mostly I think like, oh, look, there's more of you out there, or this is a good shot, or sometimes it's like, can you believe this outfit situation, whatever. And it's usually within the app. Now that you have the messaging in the app, people do that.
You also use a frame a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I want to hear about that. Like, this was something people did early on in Instagram when Instagram was only squares.
Yep.
And you were using kind of a classic portrait or landscape frame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I use it. I think I like having the negative space around it. I like being able to see the whole picture easily while sort of scrolling, and I just think it sets it off better. I don't like having just one big photograph on the screen.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you do that? Do you do that in Instagram, or is
No,
there another
it's
app you do it through?
It's called Croptic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just another app. And it's also a way to sort of edit things and see if they actually look good, right? If they look good as a photograph rather than just like as a situation.
Right, not like that's three people wearing leopard prints, but that's an interesting picture of three people wearing leopard prints in a rectangle.
Yeah, where maybe like the composition and color is actually good. And I've started using stories to post the just sort of, this is fun, but I don't know if I'll keep it.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you know what good is? Or how have you come to learn about what good means or define good? What's a good photograph?
What's a good photograph? I don't know. I have no formal training in photography, but I know a lot of photographers, and I spend a lot of time looking at photographs. It's not something that I have in mind as a formula. It's mostly if I don't like a lot of distraction. I don't like a lot of noise in photographs. I don't want people sort of standing in the background. I don't want clutter. I want it to be crisp. I want the colors to stand out. I don't like when they're sort of oversaturated or washed out, any of that.
How much color correction do you do, or retouching, or?
Almost none. I will occasionally adjust the brightness and the shadows just to sort of re-get it, or get it where I want it or what it looked like when I saw it. I like subway lighting. I think subway lighting does really weird and dramatic things. And I'd rather just leave that in the picture.
Mm-hmm. You were talking about you look at a lot of photographs. So do you have like heroes, photographic heroes, or are you just looking at Instagram all the time? I mean, which isn't necessarily either or,
both.
but
Definitely both. I'm trying to think who. My aunt just sent me this beautiful Walker Evans book of subway photographs.
Many are called.
Yeah, many are called.
And you'd not seen that before.
I hadn't seen it before, and it's incredible. I'm really loving looking at that. And then other, sort of street photographers, Meyer and Arbus, and those. But yeah, it's hard to think of like a canon necessarily of people.
You just named Meyer and Arbus, two women. Do you think there's something about your pictures that is from a woman's point of view?
Yeah. Well, so in a few ways. I think like a lot of women in New York notice and object to, or think about how people take up space, and particularly how men take up space, how And so that may be I think I probably spent more time focusing on this at one point when a friend had a sort of a call out account about manspreading, and he would repost pictures of people manspreading. And so I was looking for people manspreading.
Was this the people who take up too much space on the
Yeah.
subway Tumblr?
Yes, it
Oh,
was.
wow. I
Yeah.
talk about that a lot in my class.
Oh, do you really?
Because, I mean,
Yeah.
I talk about different forms of journalism, and I use two different examples. One is the 10,000 word piece
Mm-hmm.
that, has, sometimes has an impact and sometimes just makes a lot of people feel smart and knowledgeable.
Right.
And then I talk about that Tumblr, which essentially defined this word that now is, the MTA refers to it. Other, it's like now an international concept. So there is a person who, because I think the Tumblr is no longer active or.
Well, and I shouldn't. I don't want to misrepresent or overrepresent their role. So I should look back into the archive there. But yeah, I mean, it was somebody I knew who was doing that and was looking for submissions, and so
Wow.
that was something to look for. So there's certainly that angle, and then on the other, hopefully self-aware part of it, I'm small, I'm white, I'm female. People don't. I don't take up a lot of space. I don't read as threatening or I don't know. So I think I'm able to take photos surreptitiously more easily than somebody else would.
Mm-hmm. And so you feel safe doing it?
I feel inconspicuous doing it. There's certainly a sense of risk to it, and that's something I think about of sort of, well, if I'm feeling that, maybe it means it's a little bit wrong, or there's something ethically messy about it. And I do think about that a lot. But in the moment, there's certainly a sort of pleasure in the risk of it.
Do you think the sense of pleasure is related to the sense that there's something wrong?
Not, or that there's something, I think it's more in the moment of the risk of getting caught and then having to explain myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a sort of rapid fire brain tickle of like, all right, well, how are you going to explain that? But it's never happened. And I wonder if it's because people notice and don't care. Or if they really just don't notice. And the pleasure is also in getting the picture I want, having it in mind and managing to get it or get something else. And then the most of the sort of ethical thinking about it happens outside of the moment.
Right. So there must be pictures you've taken and not posted.
Definitely.
So tell me about one of those.
I try not to post pictures that are unflattering or that seem in any way cruel, to be mocking somebody or taking advantage of them. I don't take pictures of homeless people. I don't take pictures of people who seem like, who are crying or having a bad day, in a really visible way. I think the subways are really, it's a really vulnerable place to be. We're all living our lives on there. So I normally don't take that photo. And on the rare occasions where I've taken a picture where I thought like they wouldn't want to see that of themselves, then I don't post it.
It's about like people looking like respectable or
people, I think that's the main standard is like, would they feel okay seeing this picture of themselves? Would they feel, accurately represented, like it was a version of themselves they didn't mind seeing? So.
And has that ever happened?
No, not that I know of. The account's public, but not that I know of.
Okay.
The city's huge.
It is a huge city. It's happened to me a couple times.
Has it really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
Well, in one case, the one I've sort of written about and that kind of got me thinking about a lot of things was one case where I took a picture because I shoot from the hip and with a black screen, so I'm not necessarily looking through the camera and I don't necessarily know what I'm getting, and I'm probably not as cautious as you are about just because I don't know what's going on in people's heads. And I don't. There are some from one end of the spectrum. There are people who are going to object to any depiction of themselves that they haven't fully controlled, and I don't know how good I am at guessing how people feel, which isn't to say that I don't think about it and don't hold back some time. But like there was one time where I took a picture and someone wrote a little story about the person and the bad day she was having, and then someone else wrote in that classic internet I know that person.
Oh wow.
And so I've never talked to her about it. There's another guy who I'd photographed who made it his Facebook picture for a while, so that was kind of a nice thing. But it is a hard thing to think about. You also often aren't showing faces.
Yeah, I mostly don't show faces. Well, and to be clear, it's not that I imagine I know what somebody is thinking or what they would think so much as trying to imagine myself in their position and think like, would I really want a picture of me eating, a dollar slice on the train? Maybe. It's funny. We've all been there, just been that hungry. But also, no. I'm mostly, and the other way around it is I mostly don't show faces.
And that's intentional.
It's intentional. Partly it's a way I like taking pictures of people reading. So there's some sort of synergy there, right? That if I don't want to show their faces and I like showing what people are reading, I can just show them reading. I took a picture yesterday or the day before of a Orthodox Jewish man reading a magazine, and he had taken off his glasses and put the magazine right up against his face.
Now, I have a feeling, like I almost commented on your page, like I have seen a man who is really myopic.
Yeah.
And does that. Yeah. And I wonder if it's the same guy, and I will look through my photographs and send it.
Yeah, that would be great. He had these really unusual tiny circle glasses, but he'd taken them off to read the magazine. But what was so great is the picture that was on the page facing me was of a man who looked almost exactly like him, wearing the same black hat with the same gray beard, with the same wool coat, and because there's a uniform, right? Like that's easy. It's not that their faces necessarily resembled one another, but at a distance there was this sort of mise en abîme of the Hasidic man's face on top of the Hasidic man's face. So that's fun. And also hopefully some anonymity. I mean, it goes back and forth, right, between the sort of anomie of the city where we're all sort of exposed to each other all the time, and in that there's anonymity, and then also the sort of intimacy of people when they don't think they're being watched, or I certainly don't think they're being photographed.
Right. I mean, when I think about that question, one of the things I think about a lot is how much we're being watched by companies and by governments.
Yeah.
And because you look at those Walker Evans pictures, and I've done some research. Actually, Metropolitan Faces was a name for Many Are Called, which is where I got that name for the project. And I went looking, and I was like, oh, that would be a good name. I'm glad he didn't use it. But when he did that show 25 years later, and I haven't found an article saying that anybody saw themselves in the pictures, that anybody showed up. So, like, those people are anonymous,
Yeah.
What's her name? Harriet Meyer?
Yeah,
you look at Harriet Meyer's pictures, and, like, you don't expect to be able to know who those people are.
Right. Well, and we sort of love the stories when people do discover. There's that clickbait story that goes around every once in a while. It's going around again now about the Chinese couple where he's in the background of a photograph she took, and then 20 years later they met, and then some years later they look through the photos and he says, oh my God, that's me in the background of your, travel photo.
Or on a more serious or a less serious note, like the distracted boyfriend meme, like the story behind who those people really are. I've read that. But on a more serious note, I've read, about the, the napalm naked girl,
yes, yeah.
like her name is known. She gives speeches. She goes out with a photographer.
Yeah.
And that was a surprising thing then. Like, I think Facebook could tell you pretty quickly, who you photographed. Like, they may know, they're just not.
No, absolutely. I mean, and it's such a sprawling conversation, the sort of what the subject thinks, right? The whole Sally Mann story, or other photographers I know and their children. And we're obviously having this conversation on a less artistic register about, mommy bloggers and their kids and all of this. But I think in terms of the anonymous relationships, you're right, it's probably closer to the ethics of photojournalism. Or, I'm also thinking of the 10-year challenge going on Facebook right now. There was an article in Wired today that was like, this is clearly AI face learning. So the surveillance piece is important, I think, too.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's an artistic tradition there and a journalistic tradition there that are intersecting and being preserved matters. But I do wonder where it intersects with the much more sinister, Big Brother governmental part of it.
Did you used to do more faces, or have you always not done many faces?
It's a good question. I think I probably used to do more faces, probably before I hashtagged it and before I made the account public. And they're still there. I went back and hashtagged them. That's a verb, right? Sure.
At this point, everything is a verb. We've lived through,
except for the things we've made into nouns.
right. But we've lived through the winter of gifting as a verb. So, like, why not hashtagging?
Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can think of some faces that I've definitely photographed and left there. I don't think I've taken any down. So.
Do you think differently about taking the subway now than you did, but when you started this project?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the ways I've explained it to people is that I've been in New York a long time. It's really easy to feel burned out here, especially when you're commuting and you're just doing sort of the triangle of like, you know, home, work, home, and to feel like, and then you go on vacation and suddenly you're looking at another city in all of these ways and ways of reconnecting to New York in the ways that I connect to new places. So having something to photograph gives me that way to sort of key back into what I like about New York. The subway's wretched, you know, it's overcrowded. It doesn't come when it's supposed to. It breaks down constantly. It's obviously getting worse. So if there's some way to find pleasure in the unexpected parts of it, or look forward to being on it, or make the best of being on it, it makes a big difference. And I have other ways of doing that with photographs. I don't photograph faces on the subway, but I photograph faces on buildings. I have this other account called Face Facades that are all these beautiful old New York City buildings that have faces all over them.
Faces
stone
like
faces,
stone
like
faces.
decorative faces.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that was the same thing. I was commuting back and forth in the same train to my office every day, up and down Broadway, which has all these beautiful old buildings with hideous retail on the first floor. But you look up and there's owls and lions and sheep and, you know, all kinds, mermaids, everything. So I started looking for those. Yeah.
Do you ever take pictures of other people taking pictures on the subway?
No, I've taken pictures of people taking selfies. They seem like especially fair game. They're already being photographed.
Although they're in control of it.
They're in control, yeah. Yeah, that might be the most sort of mocking ones. But it's still, I do try to make them nice photographs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just to, you know, there's that account, should I call out? And I don't like, you know, Subway Creatures, where it's often people sort of making a fool of themselves or making a mess or looking ridiculous. And that feels like punching down in a way that I don't want to do.
Mm-hmm. So what else do you feel like you won't do?
People who are exposed in a way that they don't know they are. Somebody, you know, with a hole in their pants or something like that. I go back and forth on children.
Tell me about other accounts you do follow, or do you not like to look at them?
No, I do. I love Subway Hands. That's the one I'm the most interested in. I like your photographs, obviously.
Thank you.
Those are the two that I follow that are subway focused.
When you go to other cities, do you take pictures on the subway?
Yeah. Also, my partner is a transportation planner. So if we go to other cities, we always take the subway or the bus or any mode of transportation, of public transportation that is available, we will end up taking.
So how does your partner think about your project?
He's not on Instagram. He's not on Instagram. So I will sort of pathetically look at the picture I took today, you know, comment on it. But yeah, he has a lot more, I imagine, brain space and free time than I do, not scrolling endlessly.
So is he just like, he see them as like design research or something like that, or planning research?
When we go on the subway?
No. When he's looking at your pictures.
Oh, no. He's looking at them as photographs and as somebody who appreciates New York City and the people in it. Yeah. No, I mean, great. Sometimes, and I will take pictures of like subway oddities of like, look, the new handles or the new arrows or, you know, look at this thing falling apart. But yeah.
And what have you learned from him, from learning how to look at transportation, how to look at the subway?
The scale of it and the complexity of it, I think, an appreciation. So I've been here a long time. He moved here about 5 years ago, and we'll battle sometimes, you know, sort of the analog versus the the quantitative, where mapping how to get somewhere, right? Where I'll say, well, the transfer there is terrible and I hate it. So I'd much rather do this. It'll take 5 minutes longer, but then at least we don't have to walk up, blah, 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 blah. And so there's this sort of optimizing versus the sort of affective, like what feels good on the subway. So just very different experiences of riding it in that way. In terms of the people on the train, I think, thinking about the scale and the numbers.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel more at home on the subway now than you did? You said 2011, so we'd be talking 8 years ago. Do you feel more at home now than you did 8 years ago riding the subway, or not necessarily? Do you feel safer?
I feel more aware. I mean, I think I moved to New York in 2003. No smartphones, no iPod, none of that. So I just read books on the subway like everybody else, or magazines. And so as the commuting technologies have changed, I think my relationship to it has changed. And I think there were probably some sort of brain dead years in the middle there where it was just a means to an end. And now it's a more sort of full part of my day.
Do you have a vision for a project that you might do with your Kaylee Ginger subway photographs?
Yeah, I want to do a book of them. I was thinking of just doing a zine, doing like a series of zines, because I think there are some fun through lines and groupings. I actually woke up in the middle of the night last night and thought, oh, I have these 2 photographs. I have one of a woman reading The Life and Death of American Cities by Jane Jacobs. And then I have another one of a man incredibly, very impressively, almost all of the way through The Power Broker. And that, those have to go next to each other. And that's a very New York juxtaposition to, right, the idea of people. And there's that pleasure when you see somebody reading something really good and want to talk to them about it and also sort of capture those interactions. But
do you ever break the wall and talk to people?
I do, but not about taking a picture.
Right, but like you've seen somebody reading a book that you care about, you take the picture and then you talk to them? You talk to them and then you take the picture?
Yeah, sometimes. Or, I mean, in that sort of... I go back and forth between sort of, I don't want to be talked to, so why should I talk to people? Airplane etiquette. And then also, it always turns out well. It almost always turns out well. I've had some really great conversations just approaching people because either I recognized them or I liked what they were reading or, I wanted to know where they got their jacket. And it happens so rarely, and I think New Yorkers are actually really quite warm and receptive to those interactions.
Tell me about more of the through lines. Like what motifs do you, focus on?
Tourists with maps, tourists just trying to figure out where the hell they are. And those, I always break the fourth wall. I will always tell a tourist. I can't believe the number of people who just sit there silently listening to people have no idea where they're going, but definitely on the wrong train. Let's see, people holding hands. I know what the other one I won't photograph is. I rarely take pictures of people sleeping. That seems really vulnerable. I have one, and it's a picture people really liked, and I really wobble on whether to leave it up because I like the picture because a man's face is obscured, like in so many. His garment bag, he's hung his suit bag on a rail, and it's perfectly obscuring, like it's right down the plumb line of his body.
Oh, and is that the one with people on either side of him?
People on either side, but the woman on one side is asleep, sort of head back, mouth open. And I'm afraid that that's part of why people like the picture. But I don't like that part of the picture.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I remembered the garment bag and not the woman sleeping.
That's great. That does make me feel better. Good. Yeah. So other through lines, flowers, just really good style. I like all newspapers, lots and lots of newspapers. I love, the businessman fold. That somehow you like get a certain job or turn a certain age or make a certain income and they teach you how to fold a newspaper properly.
So when I was in 5th grade, Mr. Pantazonis taught us the New York Times fold.
Oh my God.
And because it was what a like a successful New Yorker does.
Yes. Yeah.
With the broadsheet.
Yeah. No, it's one of these marvels of New York. I always love these sort of, not necessarily trends, but these things that sort of mark New Yorkers. All of a sudden, all the women are wearing the same shoe, and you have no idea how they found out about the shoe. But suddenly, right now, everyone's wearing berets. I don't know where the berets came from. Suddenly, a lot of old people on the Upper East Side look really chic, and or not even chic. They look very on trend. They've always been chic. So yeah, other through lines. I think I take a lot of pictures of just sort of good prints and textures, and that would be one. Sort of lots of animal prints, um, lots of hands. Hands are easy, but they're really interesting. People's breakfast, a lot of like, you know, deli rolls and spilled cups of coffee.
Has anybody liked any of your pictures in a context that you didn't mean it to be liked?
Um,
Like I have one
yeah.
picture that I took, and my pictures go on Flickr as well
Mm-hmm.
as Tumblr, and then I push them through my Twitter feed. But
Smart.
there's one picture that I called Charlie Brown tights, and it was just like a woman with like
Yeah,
zigzaggy
yeah.
tights, and I don't think they were exactly the yellow and black, but it just, and for some reason Legmen
Oh
got
no.
into this picture,
Oh no. So
and
you've got
so it's the
yeah.
most popular picture of mine
Oh wow.
on Flickr because it's in some, like, and I mean she's
Yeah.
fully clothed, like I don't
So,
get it, but
yep. No. I've wondered about it because I also sometimes take pictures of feet, and I wonder like, but I only use my hashtag usually, and so I think maybe they're I have fewer followers, but also they're less exposed to the sort of fetishists and other folks. I remembered another account I like, New York from behind, which isn't always subway photographs. It's usually just people from behind. And I'll sometimes tag them in pictures because if you tag or hashtag them, they do a repost on Sundays.
oh, right.
And those are wonderful photos. Those are really fun. And again, anonymous, but not like. Um, and how anonymous are you if you're wearing, head to toe orange fake fur? So, yeah,
Right. And we haven't talked about your banana series. So
bananas.
tell us, tell us about the banana series. Oh,
Banana
Bananas of New York.
Bananas of New York. Bananas started because I just see bananas everywhere. And it was also a moment of feeling really disaffected with New York, the sort of ebbs and flows of being able to stand it here. And I needed a new thing to be looking for. I'd been looking for faces on buildings for a long time, and I wanted a new thing. And there are a few things where I'll sort of see what could be a picture and walk by and think like, oh, I got to start. If I was cataloging them, I'd have taken that picture. If I had a collection, I would have picked it up. One is abandoned gloves, but there's already a good abandoned gloves account, so I didn't do abandoned gloves. Um, but bananas I liked, and there's sort of there's a lot of personality and the ways that bananas get discarded and their ubiquity.
Do you see an end to Kaylee Ginger subway photographs? Or have you had periods where you just haven't been able to do it?
There have been periods where I didn't do it, probably periods of being especially disaffected with New York and just wanting to hunker down through the commute. No, I mean, I could, I guess, leave New York, but they're just as fun to take traveling. I was in Paris and took lots of them. And no, I think it's one of my favorite ways of staying connected to what I love about New York City. I always say to people, people ask I'm from a really small town in Vermont, and people say like, oh, what's it like to live in New York City? I said, it's the same as your day. I get up, I go to work, I maybe see a friend, and I go home. And on the average day, I'm not going to the Met. I'm not, eating at some fabulous restaurant. I'm just living my life. And the biggest difference is the subway. Every day, I ride the train with thousands of other people and am in constant proximity to and contact with this incredibly heterogeneous city, full of people who are different from me, and I don't want to ever take that for granted. I want to always appreciate. I came from somewhere really homogenous, and I want to always appreciate and be in contact with that much difference. So yeah, I think I would always do it.
So coming from this town in Vermont, you must have a really different idea of what a stranger is.
Yeah, yeah. I joke not totally unseriously that I change my hair every few years so that I can go home and not be recognized. Um, my town has about 3,000 people, which isn't tiny. It's a college town, so again, there are new people, but it's small. And you go to the general store, and you will see your kindergarten teacher, and a high school boyfriend, and 6 other people you've known forever. And that's wonderful to visit, but it's also really exposing and vulnerable in this other way. You're sort of always obligated to and accountable for social engagement. And yeah, strangers, everybody knows a stranger. And you know each other by your cars and whatnot. So if somebody else's car is parked somewhere, it stands out. Yeah, very different. You would not just... Actually, you know what? There's a journalist, Jeff Charlotte, now lives in my hometown. And he, for a while, was taking portraits of people around town. And I follow him on Instagram. And he posted a picture of my father. And it was the most sort of uncanny comeuppance of, oh, I post all these pictures of strangers, and here's somebody posting a picture of a stranger, and it's my dad. And apparently, his child, who was about 5 at the time, picked him. My dad has a huge white beard and wears a lot of red and green, so he looks kind of like, and it's Vermont, so he really looks like a sort of hippie Santa Claus, and stands out to a 5-year-old. And so Jeff had posted this picture of my dad. And I thought, oh, no. I was the person commenting like, I know that guy.
And what did Jeff say?
He thought it was great. And Jeff does a lot of photographing people, but he does it in an interview storytelling format where he's really directly engaging with them. But with my dad, I think he liked the look of him. He took a quick picture, posted it, and went on with his day.
How do you feel about being photographed after all of this?
So there are a lot of photographs in my family, or photographers in my family. There are a lot of photographs too. There are a lot of photographers, and almost none of us like being photographed. Yeah, I don't like being photographed. One of my eyes closes weird. I can never figure out what to do with my hands. I've always liked having a camera much more. And I got a camera in high school and was always the person taking all the pictures of my friends. And I had the Polaroids and did the whole thing. So,
but that also meant you weren't in them most of the time?
Not in them, yeah. And that's fine. I love having a record of things and being the record keeper of them, but I have no need to be in them. And I think that's a consistent thing. I like editing, not writing. I like being behind the camera and not in front of it.
And tell us a little bit about what you do when you're not taking pictures on the subway.
I'm an editor mostly. I do public programming and editing at NYU around religion and media, and I teach about religion and media.
What haven't I covered? What haven't we talked about?
Good question. I'm curious a little bit more about the conversation around the ethics of it. I've seen some people saying that we need to think more carefully about the risks we expose people to by photographing them. And it's something I continue to just try to think through.
Yep.
Particularly more vulnerable folks, women of color, trans people, whether, just living their day-to-day life isn't challenging enough that now they have to worry that people are taking photographs and putting them on Instagram.
Right. Well, I mean, I think about the woman with the Charlie Brown tights a fair amount. And, there's another picture I took of 2 men in jeans shorts kind of entangled with each other. Mm-hmm. That also got popular that time on Tumblr at a different community, in a gay community. And that felt a little different because they were on display. Yeah. And they were maybe not, but they were comfortable with each other. They were being, I don't know. I think about her a lot. Yeah. But the thing I think about actually is undocumented immigrants. Yeah. Because I know, because one of my other projects is, I finally found out there's a word for them. It's called pogies, but they're handlebar mittens. And so I got really interested in the handlebar mittens that the delivery men. The delivery men,
yes, that they have the plastic bags inside of and on. Yes,
right.
And they're attached.
Yes. So I've done some of them are some people make them out of duct tape and some people, but with that project, it's mostly Asian and Latino immigrants. Yeah. And I always have to make it clear that I am not taking a picture of their face. I'm taking a picture of their bike handlebars. And that's what I'm, but I think about that, there's a guy in Russia, I'll send you a link to, and I spoke to him. He was a student and did sort of an art project where he took pictures of people on the subway and then he ran them through Kontaktia, which is like Facebook or a Facebook-like Russian platform, and then talk to the people. But I've had fantasies of 25 years from now, opening up this data set to people and having them, I always, one thing photographers often say is like, I will always take the picture down if someone asks me to.
Right.
And I don't know that that's possible in the same way. Like, I could delete it, but it's in the database of, I'm using, I don't do this on Instagram, which mostly because I don't enjoy the feedback loops, or I wanted to figure it out on my own instead of through those feedback loops. So Flickr and Tumblr are much slower feedback loops, which can be depressing when no one is looking at your pictures, but it's also more kind of, I'm doing what I want to do and less what other people want. I don't know that it's an ethical, the sort of the line I came up with, and when I imagine my sort of academic-ish essay about this is like, or, the book I might want to do sometime. And, it's really about like where Flannery meets surveillance.
Yeah.
And I think that's where
great.
We live now, and, like you were saying, the 10-year Facebook challenge, I tweeted the same thing yesterday. I was like, whose neural net are we, helping right now?
Nice data set, guys. I work with a lot of anthropologists, and there's a great moment in a book that I edited that's coming out in the spring. A friend who's an anthropologist of religion who was working in a pilgrimage site in India, and they have this huge camel fair in Pushkar in India. And all of these tourists, lots of pilgrims come, but then also lots of tourists come. And there's a mustache competition, and there's a camel decoration competition. It's this whole incredible thing, and it's just beautiful and colorful and rife with cliche. And there was an instance in which these white, I think European tourists, maybe American tourists, have been photographing all day, right? They're all taking pictures of everybody, not asking permission, just taking pictures. And then someone took a photograph of them, and they got so upset. How dare you? You didn't ask. And they were tourists, and everyone was there for their consumption and their sort of maybe more generously appreciation. But they were immediately totally uncomfortable with the idea that they were also on display and also an exotic oddity to be taken and taken home to show other people. And so a sense of sort of parody there seems, with an I, important. That there's something democratizing about it, and the sort of flaneur sense of like, we're all part of the city and we're all wandering and being seen and seeing. And then there's obviously the much more ominous and very real sort of Gary Steingart, super sad true love story version of it, where our credit scores are floating over our heads, and a camera on every corner can recognize us. So yeah, it's I like the idea of trying to think that through in a way that's not about a sort of normative judgment, good or bad, but that is sort of evaluating the situation and taking stock and trying to think of how do we do creative work in that. That's ethical.
One more sort of idea to throw at you is like the other thing that it does is and I guess Flickr started doing this, is it undermines our sense of individual specialness.
Yeah.
I've definitely become much more comfortable with people taking my picture since I've started this, and I feel like it's fair game.
Yeah.
And and when my students bring it up, I often ask them, say like, how many surveillance cameras took your picture today? Like how many would you guess? And, they're being photographed all the time. We're all being photographed all the time. And, it's all about what kind of narratives are being made out of that and who has the right to craft them.
Yeah, and there's so many questions there. There's something empowering in a sort of reclaiming your photo, reclaiming control, as you said, over the image. There's a sense of resignation of like, fuck it, we're all being photographed anyway. We might as well have some fun with it. And then there is that safety security situation of, I am white, I'm a citizen, I have all of these privileges and safeties that are not available to far too many people in this, I'm economically secure. And I don't ever want to seem, I think maybe, predatory or exploitative in that, and don't want to lose a sensitivity to the fact that that private, there's also this sense of like, well, what if I just took the pictures and didn't show anybody? I could have almost everything we've talked about today. The sort of pleasure of taking the photo, the risk of taking the photo, the creative pleasure of making something I think is beautiful, without getting any, likes. I could even maybe make a book and you slow it down into that other medium and feel a little less muddy about it.
What do you like, and what does your audience like? And I should say
Yeah.
your followers. But like, what's the difference between those? Like, because
Uh,
I know I
yeah.
always feel like the things I like are not necessarily the things other people,
Yeah.
I don't like taking pictures of myself, and yet like my top
I know.
9 were all selfies or were
Yep.
half selfies.
Yep.
And I maybe had taken only that many.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I feel the same way where it's like, oh, um, I had a moment, I think I tagged it as a commuter photo. I was getting off the subway after voting in the midterms this year, and Cynthia Nixon was standing outside the Union Square. And I stood there for a while thinking, like, am I going to get a picture with, like we're all trying to just get people to the poll, what's the harm? And so I took a selfie with her, and she looks amazing. I hate the photo of me. And it got more likes than anything else last year. People love seeing photos of my dad for aforementioned reasons. That can feel both sort of lovely, and people have affection for him too, and also a little exploitative of like he doesn't give a shit. He's just living his life, and that's his beard. In terms of the subway pictures, I like these really quiet moments. I like somebody, trying to balance a book, a coffee, a banana, and their phone. But that's not necessarily, it's boring. Everybody sees it all the time. It doesn't stand out. I like the game of trying to make that into an interesting photograph. But that, my close friends will like that. But somebody with a really amazing pair of legs, really wearing a really great pair of shoes, like that'll get a lot of likes. Sort of unusual outfits, things like that. People like much more. People sleeping.
Do like Walker Evans in that book you mentioned?
Yeah.
The introduction, he refers to himself as a penitent spy. Do
That's
you
beautiful.
ever think you will regret this project?
If it harmed somebody, and harm, I think with a pretty capacious definition. If somebody felt embarrassed, I would really question it. And I've gone back and forth between making the account private and making it public. And it's always that thing of like, well, this is a public platform. Why not make them public? It would be nice to have people see the things if they like them. There's the affirmation of people. That feels good. And then also, I don't want to be creepy. And I don't want to be thought of as creepy. But mostly I don't want to be creepy. So, yeah, I would shut it down if I felt like it had harmed somebody. But maybe it's too late at that. I mean, it's a little bit like I'll take it down if somebody asks, and it's like, well, they're asking because you did something they feel is wrong, and that probably means you should have thought about it harder first.
So what's the project? If you still lived in your town in Vermont, what could you do? What would the project be?
I think I would still be looking for things that sort of stand out in the everyday, in the day to day. When I go home, I really like, everybody there has vanity license plates. It's a thing that New Yorkers don't seem to do on the same scale as a small town, as though we didn't already know that was your Prius, but now we really know it's your Prius.
Because it
Or
says
Subaru.
like, eco-friendly.
The first Prius I ever saw, the first Prius somebody got back home said, the license plate said 70 mpg. It was a Prius with a Vermont license plate with like sort of virtue signaling license. I mean, it was really over the top. Yeah, my parents used to have my brothers and my names on their license plates. Yeah, it might be something like that. It would probably.
Well, that's so public.
I know. And this is in the sort of stranger danger 80s, right? Where you weren't allowed to have your name on your backpack or, because you had to have your family code word and all these things. But somehow the minivan, I mean, I guess if we were in the minivan, we were already good. But that was where you were supposed to be. Yeah, when I go home, I like to take pictures of the bulletin boards and these sort of, again, these sort of intimate public spaces. So it would be things like that, I think.
And do your friends, do your followers want to see those things too?
Yeah, and again, it's always a little like, oh, it's cute, but I love going home to the general store and photographing it. And I think again, it's that sense of wanting to look at things that are familiar in a new way, and that happens for me with taking a picture and thinking about things as potential photographs. So, Dan and Witt's General Store, which I've been in, I mean, truly countless times. If I can go in there with a camera, it's fun to sort of see what I haven't seen before. And there's always something. I mean, it's like the daily commute where like I was always finding new faces on those buildings, even though I walked by them every day. So I would keep looking for those things.
Do you have one favorite picture that you've taken?
Oh, of the subway photographs, I think the one that comes to mind right away is this one of it must have been an R train because it was so empty. And a woman was alone and she was wearing this beautiful black coat. She had black hair and was holding a bouquet of like purple flowers, and we were in a tunnel, so it was all black behind her, and just the orange and the purple and her posture. I mean, it reminds me of a sort of like Edward Hopper diner situation, the sort of alone in a city.
So that conversation happened back in 2019, and Kaylee was the very first person I interviewed. The world was very different back then, online and offline. So it's been 7 years, and I decided to call Kaylee for an update. You know, you were still active on Instagram. You were still collecting bananas in New York.
Yes.
And you had a sort of ethical perspective. You were showing fewer or no faces, but you were still participating in Instagram.
I moved and started working freelance. Or I had been working freelance, but I quit my like 9-to-5 job. And so I was working from home. So I didn't have a commute. I had a new city to explore, but didn't have a commute. So there wasn't kind of regular dedicated time. And then COVID, the most obvious thing.
And you were still in London for COVID?
I was in London from July or August 2019 until May of 2022. So we were supposed to go for 2 years and added a third year to try to do more of what we had moved there to do, travel and stuff. So I was working, that's the biggest change. Different country, working from home, and COVID. And so still taking lots of pictures on my little walks and stuff and finding things I liked to find patterns of in London. Instagram was changing. There was, the politics of everything. I think I probably continue to think about those ethics after our conversation for sure. And then just also the sort of ethical, moral quandaries of being on Instagram and the, if it's free, you're the product problem of social media became just more and more disenchanted as things rolled on. Less pleasure to be found there, more being subject to the algorithm.
Right. Are you still posting at all on Instagram? Are you still reading?
Almost not at all. I still look at Instagram. I think about a year ago, I took the app off my phone and just at the kind of, chunks of 10 minutes here and there during a day. And that sort of, this isn't how I want to spend my life. But I still like looking at pictures. And so I'm skipping things there, but I took the app off my phone. And so I look at it on the browser, which is a really hostile and unpleasant way to look at it. For a little while,
and so that's like an intentional thing.
Totally intentional. Yeah.
If it's more inconvenient for you, you spend less time there.
Yeah, they really don't want you to use it on the browser because I think the tracking is worse and the, all the things that they make money off of work a little less well. And so, but it was a good a friend had suggested this, who also used to post a lot, was sort of less, not interested in her time going there as much as it was. And it also made the messaging function really clunky and bad. And I had enjoyed the sort of sending messages back and forth with friends. And I've basically reverted to, back when I just I'll take a screenshot and text it to them. In the same way that with Facebook, I've gone from sort of needing to post a status for everybody to just sending it to the few people who I think might genuinely be interested. And trying to sort of wean myself off of that dopamine. And
And
then
by
yeah.
2024, you're back in New York.
Yeah, yeah. By 2022, we're back in New York. I'm
Right.
back in New York
Okay.
then. But I'm at that point I've been full-time freelance. And so working from home. And
In New York as well.
in
Yeah.
yeah, in New York. And so that's I've worked from home since 2019. So the
So
commute
like
has been
how
gone.
often are you getting on a subway?
A few times a week. I mean, it's funny. It's so much less than ever before in my New York life. And right when I reflect on it, it's like, oh gosh, it's been many years of not being on the subway every day. But there were so many. I moved here in 2003, so that's 2003 to 2019, taking the subway every day, and then now, a few times a week. I now live directly above the subway. I
Oh,
can
like
see the platform outside my window.
do you
So
feel or hear it?
we can hear it. Yeah, I can hear it. We can sometimes, if they blast the speakers too loud, we can hear the announcements, which is annoying. But it's tremendously convenient. Other changes. So I think there were two things. I got gifted for my 40th birthday. My partner gave me a nice digital camera, like a real camera, which I
Oh
had not
wow, what
had.
kind? A digital SLR
A
or like
Fuji, yeah, like a nice Fuji. I'm now, of course, as I'm being asked, blanking on the exact model, but and then another friend gave me a few lenses to play with that he wasn't using anymore, and so it was part of, I wasn't posting on Instagram. I'd wanted a nice camera, had been overwhelmed by the sort of research and cost of it, and so that was this really lovely gift of someone else doing that. Um, so transitioned to that, and then, I mean, the real truth is, I stopped posting after October 7th. Um,
oh interesting. Say do you mind saying
yeah,
more about that?
I think
Because
that
that's not about the subway.
it's not about the subway at all. It's about Instagram. It's about the kind of space that Instagram was and how I wanted to participate in it. And I think I felt like either I could post about the war or I could not post. And I was sort of couldn't look away, but pretty appalled by the way that discourse was unfolding there and the kind of the dissonances of sort of logging in, and you would see sort of your friend's baby, somebody else's meal, dead children, and then someone trying to sell me pants. And I was sort of like, this is just so vulgar. And so, um, yeah, it was just too much. It was too much. It was too many contradictions. It was too much. And so I think the only things I've posted have probably been fundraisers for people in Gaza, and that's it. And the occasional, maybe reshare of somebody else's fundraiser or event in stories, so it's not a permanent grid thing.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't feel like that was the most effective way to organize or to be an activist or to participate in the discourse. I felt like there were other ways to do that. Um, but I also felt kind of gross being like, here's here's a cute dog I saw in the park today,
Right.
and participating in that kind of the feed, that sort of noise in the feed of all of these things together. Um,
And who
Nothing
are
has felt necessary to post since then. You
right?
know.
And who are you looking at? Like when you say like did did a lot of the people you followed also disappear around that
It's a
time?
good
Are you
question.
looking at it for, do you still have your photo community? Is it your Gaza community? Is it, your like what's there?
Yeah, it is. It's still photographers and journalists to some extent. It's still, I want to know when a friend publishes a big story, or has an exhibit or something like that. And then it's friends and it's, restaurants I'd like to remember to go to, right? who only post their hours or their closed dates on Instagram, and just sort of bourgeois Brooklyn life of wanting to know where the good tacos are. Yeah, again, it's sort of like, is this the best place for that? And it's a necessary one, and I don't judge folks for being there, but it was not where I wanted to do. Well, it's not where I wanted to make my contribution. So
Right.
yeah, the feed is still there. I will say I've stopped using it for messaging because it's so unpleasant to use on the web browser. And we have other ways to do messages that Meta doesn't control. Not that many, but we have some.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to see if this works. I want to play a quote, or at least
Oh
show
gosh.
you a quote.
The sense of like, well, what if I just took the pictures and didn't show anybody? I could have almost everything we've talked about today. The sort of pleasure of taking the photo, the risk of taking the photo, the creative pleasure of making something I think is beautiful, without getting any, likes. Um, I could even maybe make a book and you slow it down into that other medium and feel a little less muddy about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just go ahead, react to that.
I'm so not inoculated to hearing my own voice, so I'm going to try to get over that. Ambitious, but also seems about the same. Like, there's no book, but yeah, it's that feeling of taking a picture and just sending it to the person who I think will like it, and taking back a little bit of the delayed gratification of like carrying my camera around the park, and then maybe a few days or a few weeks later remembering that I took pictures and downloading them and then going through them and then picking a few to send to somebody, and or not, just, and I think again it was trying to like disengage from that sort of um, need for the dopamine hit of the likes, which it's wild now to think of how sort of enthralled we all were to that for a while.
I mean, I would say are, but
Or
I mean,
sure.
I'm not, or at least I am. I don't know, like, yeah, but I'm still
I
on there, and it
Yeah.
still means something when someone who I don't really know, but I respect or I admire what they do sends me something. It's less of a quantitative thing and more of a
Yeah.
qualitative thing for me, but I don't know.
No, that's totally fair. I'm exaggerating. I think what I mean is that there was a kind of, everyone I knew was on Facebook, except for maybe one or two people. Everyone was on there and everyone posted. And for most of us, I have some friends who are still there and they are still posting and they are still in conversation. And it feels like a time capsule of a certain way of communicating and a certain way of sort of performing or narrating our everyday lives. Um, but there's also something really uncanny and sort of disconnected of like looking back at posts from 15 years ago or something. I'm thinking like, oh, I can't believe we talked like that. I can't believe this is where we did that kind of communication. Seeing the sort of fossilized versions of the sites in it, like the way that like the way that it sort of used to be, the architecture of it used to sort of guide a certain kind of posting. And I think I'm probably at just the right age. I mean, Facebook became a thing when I was in college, and so as every older millennial, I feel like at the center of the social media sort of arc, right? Like the main character of this stuff, but it is as a cohort, as kind of a generational cohort. And so what I mean is that I've seen a lot of my friends who were on there who are my age pull way back. And the folks who I see still on there are mostly older than I am.
And do you have a place, like, have you joined a new photo community? In the same way that there's been a spate of like Twitter clones,
Yeah, yeah,
there's been a spate of Instagram clones. They don't necessarily, I mean, they're not Instagram because they don't have the social graph more than anything. And you
yeah.
can't port your connections. But like, have you tried any of those? Have you gone back to Flickr?
I haven't. I have friends who are still like, they just never left Flickr, and I love it that every so often I get this sort of out of time notification in my email that so and so has posted on Flickr. No, I don't, and I think part of it is I'm wondering two things, and now it feels like a sort of therapy question more than anything. I think one is being afraid of getting sucked back into the sort of wanting the sort of, brain chemistry of it. Like I feel like I sort of quit that habit and I don't want to let it back into my brain. I want to spend I don't want to do anything that makes me spend more time on my phone. And the other is probably just aging and like what kinds of communication with my friends make sense when most of them don't live here and most of them are raising kids, and the kinds of like ways of being in touch are much more one-on-one and much more sort of coordinated.
So we could say your project has run its course. Do you regret it or any of it? And if so, what?
And actually it occurs to me that at some point in maybe 2020, I met this really energetic, very cool person who it turned out was also very interested in faces on buildings and had her own little archive of them. And she really wanted to do a project together. And I just did not have commensurate energy for it. I sort of like just, how some people can have 12 projects going at a time, and I'm not one of them. I tend to be pretty monogamous and boring with my projects. And so that fizzled on my end. Regrets? It's a great question. I think that the woman who runs the Subway Hands account at some point
Hannah,
posted
yeah.
something, about her sort of practice and ethics around how she does things, and she always gives people a little card and tells them, and she doesn't post without permission, she doesn't post faces. And I think, I do. I like taking the pictures. I like sharing them at the time. I'd like to give myself maybe some grace of like knowing how insidious it would become, like the whole sort of machinery of social media would become. There was a kind of innocence to it. It felt very small scale and personal and just like for my friends. And it never got bigger than that, right? I never had many followers. But yeah, in this moment of surveillance and face recognition technology and police scraping social media for whatever they want and all of those things conflagrating in such insidious ways, I certainly would not put strangers' faces on the internet at this point. Now, as I'm talking, I was like, I really should just make my account private at this point, like, or just take those photos off. Like, no one needs them to be there. I don't need them to be there. It's that I posted so much. Like, there's so many photos there. I probably need to get, somebody younger than I am to help me, like, download all of them or something like that. But if that's even possible.
Anything else my invitation to have revisit this stirred up for you, or a thing you expected me to ask you that I haven't yet?
Great question. No, I mean, it's funny. This morning, I'm not working this week, and I had an appointment on the Upper East Side, and it was nice out, and I was going for a long walk in this neighborhood I'm not normally in. And it's still such a pleasure to sort of notice New Yorkers and appreciate these vignettes that appear and these faces. And I do miss that. I don't miss being subject to the MTA every single day of my life and those frustrations and discomforts. But I do miss sort of being in contact with New York in that way regularly. I think it's enriched. I mean, it's why we live here. There are many reasons to live here, but that is one of them. It's such a great place to look around and be surrounded by all these different people.
You've been listening to Metropolitan Faces, the podcast about subway photography. To find Kelly Handelman's subway photographs, check out the show notes on our website, metropolitanfaces.com. You can follow Metropolitan Faces wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also subscribe to our email newsletter, sign up at metropolitanfaces.com, and our Instagram is Metropolitan Faces, all one word. Metropolitan Faces is a production of Noun and Verb Rodeo. Our team includes Katie Pruden, Maddie Berger, and Jean-Luc Andre Montadi. Special thanks to Julie Subrin. Our identity was designed by Jesse Reed at Order. Our theme music is Express Train by Mr. F, which is on Burning Witches Records. This episode was made possible by support from the Lang Faculty Opportunity Fund at the New School. I'm Blake Eskin. Until next time, stand clear of the closing doors.